hello. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing today? I'm doing pretty good, actually. I'm trying to think, what was I doing today? Oh, this morning I updated my website. My About Me page was bothering me, and I got a good idea from a calligraphy colleague of something I could put on there. So I did that this morning. Took a little bit of time to go through and edit stuff, and you get into your website and you start fiddling with things, and then you realize like, oh, there's this other thing, and like, oh, I have to make sure all the formatting and the spacing is done properly, etc., etc., etc. So spent probably too long this morning fiddling with that stuff, but it's done now, so that's good. And then I had lunch, and then I did the second and final class with Carol Dubosh for Neuland script, so that was cool as well. I would show you a sample, but I've already put them away in my filing cabinet, and my filing cabinet is currently on the other side of my desk, which is now inaccessible because of the direction that my desk is facing while I stream now. So I have a nicer background versus just like a bunch of space and then my bookshelf behind. So yeah, I would show you a sample, but if you look up Carol Dubosh on Instagram, you'll see all of her cool stuff and see what she was doing today in the class that I was in. Yeah, so today is lesson number 4, in which we'll be doing letter group number 3. Yes, for copperplate. Yeah, I mean, like I said, with my other streams, just moving through them slowly. Figured it'd be a nice way to do some samples for people, who are just learning or just want to hang out while I write something, which is also totally cool. So let me switch to the overhead. There we go. So you can see my setup. Yeah, as you can see, my setup has changed a little bit from the last one. I'm just testing this out for now, so we'll see if this is a good one for stream. Like I said, I like the background here, but I also, because I have my webcam is on this side, so you see like a weird, you see the background that I would normally have. Anyways, doesn't really matter. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure, yeah, you can still see my hand and stuff. Okay, cool. So yeah, I wanted to start with, I have my little, look at me, I'm so prepared. I came with notes. Yeah, I wanted to start with my warm-ups. Right here. Oh yeah, so I'll show you my little warm-up template that I have for myself. I just made for myself on, I think, Procreate, and I just like saved it as a PDF and printed it out. So I just have something to refer to for myself, so I don't have to like make lines on my actual pads of paper. The paper that I'm using is the Canson, it's the one with the purple cover. The Canson XL marker, semi-transparent bright white. It's pretty good because it doesn't really bleed when it comes to using like a loose ink, like a free flowing ink. Unlike some other just like white, like if you use printer paper, most of the time it's gonna feather and it's gonna bleed. So this stuff is usually good. So just do a little test mark. Very cool. So I'm gonna put it at an angle. So the reason why I put it at an angle is because copperplate is done at 55 degrees. So clockwise is this way. So I'm gonna do some ovals this way, and away I'm gonna put you light, and then pulling towards myself it's gonna be heavier, and this thicker line is, I'm attempting to have this at 55 degrees. So the reason why I do warm-ups, one, actually I shouldn't be wearing a long sleeve, but there we go, because my sleeve tends to catch. The reason why I do warm-ups is, well, one, I haven't done like a pointed pen at all today. especially because it's mostly on the computer this morning. And then the one with the class I was with Carol DeBosch is Neuland, which is totally different from copperplate. So it doesn't really have the same motion. So I'm not warmed up like at all, like at all. So it's also something that I want to make known to people who are just starting to learn that warm-ups are super normal, and like integrating them into your practice, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, is always a good idea. And you also don't have to use like a loose flowing ink either. You can just use like a pencil. Alright, so messy. That's cool though. No big deal. So counterclockwise. So we're going to do the same type of thing, and just go counterclockwise. So up, away, light, and then pulling towards myself is going to be pressure. So it's that pressure and release. Generally speaking, I'm better at this direction than I am the other. So it's usually pretty meditative. You just kind of like I said, it's just pretty meditative. Right. Also, while I'm doing this, I'm trying to do a whole arm movement. You can actually see it really well on my webcam on the bottom. That I'm trying to do my whole forearm, and I'm using my my fancy glove on the paper to so I don't have hand oils that get onto the paper, which then makes ink not adhere. And it's easier for me to slide over the paper, generally speaking. And then infinity loops is the next one. So with infinity loops, the pressure stroke is, I'm attempting to make it at 55 degrees. And I'm trying to make this loop and this loop around the same-ish size. This is the goal. You can always go back over and try and I'm trying to go in between like the white space here. And then we have, last but not least, the cone shape, which is, you know, the cone. I mean, how can I explain a cone? It's a cone. But this one, it forces you to go not the same size all the time. You have to, you know, start from small, go bigger, and then go back to small again. So you can do this with ovals or infinity loops, you know, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's more for your pen control. And then from this, I wanted to go into some more specific drills. So for me, there is a difference between drills and warm-ups. So because warm-ups for me aren't necessarily trying to make a specific shape necessarily. For me, it's more just like getting used to the motion of my hand, like moving around, and like loosening up my arm and my wrists and my shoulders and all that kind of stuff. It's less about being super precise. Whereas for me, I find drills are a little bit more specific. So I've printed out my guidelines from my computer. It's on printer paper. We'll see if it bleeds, because I did add some gum arabic to my ink, so we might be okay, we might not. We'll see. But yeah, drills on like an actual lined guide sheet for me are much more to do with making specific motion with your pen to mimic how you would use the pen while you're writing, versus like a warm-up, which is just more just for like the overall motion, if that makes sense. That's kind of what I try, and that's why I think they're a bit different. Sorry. So I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing. So the first drills that I like to do are just like the downstroke pretty much, so you just do them over and over again. I won't do a whole, like a ton, but you know, just enough. Yeah, I'm already off angle. Hold on, let me adjust how I'm sitting. There we go, that's better. So what I'm aiming for is I'm trying to make sure that my lines are equally weighted from when I start to when I end it. Yeah, you can tell that I haven't done any calligraphy. Look how crooked those lines are. It's a bit better. I was trying to go a little bit too fast. It's better. Like I tell my students, slow down, not in a rush. There we go. Speedy Gonzalez, way too fast, and then the minute I slowed down, look how much better this went. So crazy. So that's the first type of drill, just the downstrokes. Then actually the next ones I'll just do on the same line. Save a little bit of paper. So this one is essentially the compound curve. I like doing this one too. It's kind of a fun one. So this one, what I'm trying to mimic is the compound curve, but if it were never to end. So normally the compound curve is like that. Let me zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Normally that's the compound curve, but I'm gonna go from entrance stroke to downstroke, exit stroke, which turns into the entrance stroke, and then back again. So it's, you know, it's like a wave. So this is like a good drill, because that one's very, very specific on pressure and release, pen control, etc. So if I were to look at this, I can see it a little bit easier actually from the screen. So I'll try and, sorry, because my iPad is it's not precarious anymore. It's on like an arm, so it does move a little bit more than how I had it before. Anyways, I'm trying to see if the space in between here, these counter spaces, if they're even. They're not fantastic. The weight here is also too high. The weight when you're doing your downstrokes, the majority of the weight should be in the middle of your X height. This one's too high. This one's okay. This one's a bit too high as well. This one's okay, and then this one's okay. So like that would be something that I would look if I was doing like an actual, like sitting down like I'm doing my drills right now. That's kind of what I would look at. You know, you do a few of them, you look, and then you go back again, and you're like, okay, so I'm going up, and then as I'm turning, I'm pressing, and then I'm turning, I'm releasing. So then now the weight is exactly in the middle of that line. So another drill I usually recommend is something kind of like the big one we were doing, but like now we're doing it on a smaller scale. So something like this. So it just kind of looks like a little corkscrew. This one is more about pen control and that pressure and release than it is about an actual shape, because there's no basic stroke that does this. But it is good practice for that downstroke to be at that 55-degree angle, and for consistency as well. So there's that one, and then essentially the same one, but so this one was clockwise. Sorry, I always get my clockwise and my counterclockwise. Oh, I always get them mixed up in my head. So yeah, so this would be clockwise, and then the other one would be counterclockwise. So pressure and then release, pressure, release, pressure, release. Kind of like that. So also, as a reminder, I'm just going to redo the basic strokes for anyone who hasn't heard of those or hasn't seen that one. I go through it in my first lesson from a few weeks ago. So just quickly, the basic. Basic strokes. So we're gonna go our entry stroke. Then we're gonna do our downstroke, which is one of the drills that I was doing before. So right from the ascender all the way down to the baseline. And then the other one, which I like to also throw in there, is the one in the X height, i.e. between the waistline and then the baseline. Then I have my underturn. So downstroke. This is the underturn. And then I'll do the big one as well. That is crooked. And then there we go. So both of those are underturns. Then we're doing our descender loop. Then we're doing our overturn. We're doing our ascender loop. We're doing our compound curve and doing our oval. Yeah, so this is going to be underturn, the descender loop, the overturn, the ascender loop, the compound curve, and then this is the oval. So those are your 8 basic strokes, just as a little light reminder. And then, yeah, we're gonna go right into letter group 3. All right, perfect. So letter group 3. Oh, by the way, the book that I use as my reference for the letter groups is by Eleanor Winters, just to, because I know not everyone refers to them as the same, in the same fashion, but it's from this book, which is Mastering Copperplate Calligraphy, so a step-by-step guide. So she has them grouped into four letter groups, and the letter group 3 is the filled in dot letters. So I will zoom back in. So those are the ones that we're going to be doing. So it's the letter B, the letter O, V, W, C, and R. So we'll start with the letter B. So if we remember from last week, like with the H and with the L, with the ascender loop. So it's like this. So you come in with the entry stroke and you don't go all the way through it like this, because then you're going to be crossing down here. We're trying to make sure that we cross at that waistline. So we go in with the entry stroke and then we bubble out like this. So it looks kind of like a bird. So we're going up and then we're popping back down, popping back over. We're essentially doing like an ascender loop when it starts. So we're going entry stroke, ascender loop, pressing down, and then going back up again. So it kind of looks like an L. I go above the waistline. Not everyone does. I do. I find optically for me, if I have, well, I'll show you. So you fill in the dot and then you bring it back over. I find that when this, hey Andrea, nice to see you. I find that when the filled in dot is above the waistline, it gives a bit more room to breathe versus entry stroke, ascender loop, down, and then up, and then doing it below. I find, personally for me, I find this can get a bit squished when you're putting this in a big word. How are you doing today, Andrea? I hope well. Also, if you just want to lurk, that's also totally fine. You don't need to chat. I'll be just talking, so you can just listen and absorb information. So yes, I'll go over again the filled in dot portion, because I kind of breezed through that. So, just a bit tired. It's fair. It's been that kind of weather, I find. So we're going back up here, and then let's see, can we see it from, try and get that a little closer. So the filled in dot for me is like, I'll make a little circle and then go up, and then you can fill it in. Or when you become good at doing it at your like pen control, I just go up and I'll press and then release and then go over. So then that dot gets filled in automatically. Although the angle of the dot's a bit weird. Let me do that again. See, because like here it's like leaning back. It should be at the angle of the 55. So let me do that one more time. So entry stroke, ascender loop, down, up, filled in dot, and then exit stroke again. So that's one version of the B. Not everyone, because not everyone writes in handwriting, that letter B sometimes doesn't make sense to people. So I do another one, which is, I don't even know where I picked this one up, but we're going to do this. And it's still a filled in dot. This reads more like a B. So we're going to go entrance stroke, ascender loop, down, but we're not going to curve. We're going to go back up like we did with the H almost. But instead of doing a compound curve, we're bringing it back towards itself. Up, I fill in the dot there, and then there's an exit stroke that I'll add. This one can be a bit harder to do because it's not as natural. It's not as fluid as a motion as this guy is, but this reads more like a B than this one does. So that's kind of my thought process. Like this one's a lot faster. There's less strokes. This one has more strokes to it. It just depends. Again, I read this one better, but this one's a bit faster. So up to you. But that's the filled in dot on the letter B. So now we have the letter O. So I've mentioned this a few times, that the way that I do the letter O, I know is not how everyone does it, because I'll do it from over here, I'll bring it down and around, and then I'll come back up again, and then I'll fill in that dot and bring it back. However, I know that a lot of people start from the top, from like noon, bring it back down, and then go back up and meet at the top, and then they'll add the loop there. I mean, they look a little bit different for sure. Hold on, let me try and concentrate a bit more. Nope, up, pressure, and then up, like that. Or we're starting from the top, down, meeting it back up, and then. So, like, there is a difference. Again, I'm just really used to doing it from like the 1 o'clock all the way around versus from noon. But I mean, to each their own. I don't know if there's anyone who's really gonna give you shit for that, to be 100% honest. As long as it looks like an O, it's fine. Plus, I have a feeling that people who watch aren't necessarily like super hyper into copperplate. They might be more into like modern calligraphy. So honestly, there's like a little bit less structured rules when it comes to like a modern calligraphy style. So if you find one easier than the other, have at her. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. Cool. So let me do that one more time. So the one that I do is around, and then I'm up here. I also find this one a bit easier too, because if I don't make it all the way exactly to that, like to meeting it again, I just press release up, like, and I hide the fact that they're not together. Okay, cool. So that's the O. We're gonna do the letter V. So the letter V is essentially a compound curve plus a filled in dot. So we're gonna go entrance stroke, downstroke, exit stroke. So again, like the B up here, I can put the filled in dot above, I prefer to put the filled in dot above the waistline and then do this and have that little exit stroke there. But I know a lot of people will do it below. I mean, it really just depends on what you prefer. I feel like this gives me a bit more space down here. This to me can look a little squished. It also depends, I think, to the word that you're working on. So like that, or like that. So there's the letter V. It's pretty simple. It's pretty standard. You just have to be comfortable with that filled in dot. Like I said, for me, it's less of a filled in dot and more just like pressure and then release right away. So there's that V. Now we're going to do the letter C. So the C. So I will, it's hard to, when I'm writing a word, sorry, I was just thinking of like, how do I explain the letter C in a way that makes sense? Instead of just watching me do it, that I can kind of like talk myself through it. So yeah, there's a couple ways that you can tackle it, which is entrance stroke. And if you like doing the O that starts from noon, you can kind of do that same motion here where you're starting at noon, then you're going to press down and then push away. So it looks like kind of like a crooked eye, but then you're going to come back after and then curl and pull this down and then fill in that little dot to make that all of a sudden a C. So I had started from here and I pulled down towards myself with no weight, and then I just added a little dot there. Versus you can entry stroke. I'll start with the dot, I'll come over, press, and then release. So this is the one I tend to go for most of the time, just because that's just how my hand naturally will want to go. Also, oh yes, something, I think I mentioned this in the last stream, but I don't remember, or if it was in the teaching one, or if it was just in my Monday random, I do whatever I want one. But when you're doing an entry stroke to a letter that has a curve, like a letter C, for example, when you do the entry stroke, you don't want to bring it all the way up to the waistline, because when your letter curves, you're going to end up missing, like you're going to have this little piece up here like poking almost out. So when I do a curved letter, I usually don't go all the way up to the top. I go about 3/4 of the way up, and then so I'm not running into like an issue of like a pokey bit like over here. Just a little tip, little trick. Oh, I should have put my calligraphy tip little animation that I have. Oh well, next time I think of a tip, I'll try to remember to turn it on. So letter C, and then the letter R. So there are two versions of the letter R. One of them is more traditional, the other one is more modern, and I don't remember which one is which. I think this one might be the more traditional one. So we're starting with an overturn. Then we're starting from here, about halfway, we're going up, pressing, and then releasing. So this, I think this is the more traditional R. So overturn, and then it's kind of like an exit stroke up at that same angle that your entry stroke here was. I'm doing that filled in dot above my waistline, and then I'm down, and then I'm back out again. So up, over, up. So again, if you prefer having that little dot under, you can too. My suggestion would be to, whatever way you decide to do it, be consistent throughout. So if you like to have your dots above, make all your dots go above. If you like them below, make them all go below, just so your eye visually it doesn't have to like look for it. It can just, you know, it looks more balanced that way. That would be my suggestion. So then the other R is, I realized it's, I guess, more of a handwriting R, almost. So we're doing entrance stroke, filled in dot. I kind of think of this like a mountain slope. So you're kind of going down, press, and then going back up again. So again, my filled in dot is above my waistline, and then I'm going down a little bit like a mountain, and then this guy right here is 55, and then I'm pushing away from myself. Let me do that one more time. Like that. And if you want to do it underneath the waistline, this one I find I don't know if I can do this one under the waistline because I find this like really shrunken. It looks, for me, that one looks a bit too weird for me, but if this works for you, be my guest, you know? So let me do them all in a row. Put that on a little bit of an angle so I can see. There we go. So we're doing letter B, the dot above, letter B with the dot below, and the letter B, that variation that I will do a lot, all with those filled in dots. We have the letter O either starting from the top down, up, and then we're doing our filled in dot there, entry stroke, and then we're doing it the other way. Ooh, that one was not very good, but it's fine. You get my point. O, then the letter V, above the line, and then below the line. We're doing, oh, I forgot W. I'm dumb. I can do that right now. So W. So a W was, I'll do it right underneath. I felt like I was like, I feel like I'm missing a letter, and I knew it. So we're doing entry stroke, under turn, filled in dot above the line, entry stroke, under turn, oh, that was a bit too wide, entry stroke, under turn, filled in dot below the line. So there we go. Fairly simple. Yeah, and then we have our letter C. So you can start from the top, down, and then away. Or See, and actually this is a good little thing to point out. My entry stroke here wasn't at a high enough angle. Do you see how it looks like it's about to poke through that C? Like it's about to pierce it like it's a balloon? That's because it needs to look like it's leaning up kind of against. Let me try that again. It should be a soft, there we go. I think I got it. There we go. That's better. So this is poking. It looks like a little arrow poking through my C. This one, it's kind of leaning up against it, which is how it should be. And there, up, and then dot, pull, and then away. And I'll go in sometimes and all, because that dot didn't go down very much, but there we go. C, and then the 2 R's. So we're going up, above the line, below the line, then above the line, and then below the line. So yeah, there we go. We have our letter group. Letter group number 3. Yay! And there was much rejoicing. How fun. So, not too bad. As I crack my knuckles. That didn't take very much time at all. Well, Andrea, it was years of practice, so that'll... But honestly, I think if were you in the stream where I pulled my old work up and out? I don't remember if I showed you. Did I? No, I showed you after of like where I was before. As I was saying it, I remembered. So like, you know where I was when I first started learning. It was not good. But now since I'm done that portion, I kind of feel like I still want to write. I have about I have it planned in my head till like 5, so like I have like a good 45 minutes like left to just kind of hang out. Yes, okay, yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure we had done this. I had shown you, so this is good. This is good to know that I'm not completely crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Is there a quote or something that you want me to write? Because I'm here. I'll just do it on like the line sheets that I have. There's a quote that I think was funny that I always see on TikTok. I'm working on actually making a print, like a digital download print of The Lion, the Witch, and the Audacity of this bitch, which I think is just very funny. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna write that one. Ugh, my nose is so stuffed right now because it's so like it's so gross. I find it so dry in the apartment. I think there we go. Actually, I'll go with this guy. My horizontal ones instead. Oh, but Andrew, have you been practicing at all? Because I know you have homework to send me next week, I think. That tea sucks. So, this is also like, it's not a good day. Actually, I think it's because the paper that I was using wasn't fab. At least I will have to go back to this guy. That's alright. Oh, the internet is quite laggy today. That's okay. Take your time. That's better. Actually, I'll zoom in a little bit too if you want to see how I'm... The lion. The witch. And yeah, lurking works. Lurking is totally fine. I think what I'll end up doing is I'm going to write this out, and then I'm thinking actually I'm going to like correct it, like how I would if I was gonna write this out by hand for something, which can be an interesting thing to see, kind of like self-correcting what that looks like. So there is a fully, like a lurking aspect to it that is perfectly fine. All right, so I want to write Audacity. It's always one of those things, if I don't do it in pencil first, I'm like, right, I have to remember how to spell this thing off the first try. Audacity. Yeah, I think I spelled that right. I'm pretty sure I did. Oh, I was completely off camera for that one. Whoopsie daisies. I'll zoom out just a little bit, give me a little more space. It's also kind of fun to write like bad words and delightful writing. There's a fun brand called Calligraphy, which makes me chuckle. I used to carry their stuff at my old store, and it would make me laugh. It was so delightful. So can we tell that this is not very centered or anything? That's totally fine. Actually, it's something that might be an interesting topic to kind of go over, how to do layout and how to center stuff, because it's not as obvious as you would necessarily think, or at least it wasn't obvious to me how to do like centering of things when I can't just go like center and click a button. So centering stuff when you're writing it by hand is challenging, to say the least. Once you know how to do it, it's not so bad, but it's still kind of a pain. All right. Let's rip apart my work. Let's do some correcting. I'll do it with a teal though, so it's less aggressive to my eyes, so I don't feel so horrible about myself after. Are we dry? I think we're dry. All right, so if I were going to go through this and tear it apart, because let's say this is for a client or something. Ooh, sorry. Let me just mute myself for a sec because I have to blow my nose. Sorry about that. I'm telling you, my apartment's so dry, so my nose gets like really like aggravated and itchy. Anyways, okay. Now let's tear my work apart. Let's see what this looks like. All right, so we have the H here. Actually, I'll take my glove off because I don't need it right now. So I have my T here. So this is, I haven't gone through this yet for the stream purposes, but I have gone through this with you, Andrea. So this here is supposed to be the line of universal beauty, which is like a downstroke that has curve here and a curve here. So if we're looking at it in that way, it's okay, except the weight, if I'm looking at it properly here, the weight starts too low here if we're comparing the top to the bottom. So it should have started like earlier up here. To make this here and this here even. Sorry, this here and this little triangle even. So that was my first like thing. So this part wasn't so bad. This part was on the angle, so that's good. Like here. But yeah, I had turned too late here and I turned at the correct time here. I also forgot to put my little dot. Let's see for my H. So going up, over. I didn't touch the ascender, so that's like a problem. So bringing it down, I also didn't start pressing a consistent weight enough here. So I should have, actually I think this is too dark for the camera. Pink is a happy color, let's use pink. Can we see this? Yes, we can. Perfect. All right, cool. So when I turned the corner here, I should have started pressing here. I didn't. I started pressing here. So what happens is the weight is too far down in my letter. So it should have been from here down. So it should be, it was more of a, it should have been a soft curve starting from up here. And it wasn't. Let's see. There. So even here too, I started pressing too fast up on the top. The way that it softly curves here is the way that I want to, from changing from thick to thin. From here I'm going right up and then I'm pressing right away. I needed to start doing that here, not here. So there's a little note for myself. I'm going up. I can see I went up and then over here, but my downstroke doesn't cover my little dude here. It doesn't cover it. So like that I would want to work on for like if I was doing a second draft. This entrance, I don't know if I love that this is fully a hairline. If I were gonna do it over again, I might want to add a bit of weight here, just because all of the other flourishy type of things have a bit of a weight on there, like the T here, the T here, the W. The one that doesn't is the in Audacity further down, which I'll get to. So this L here is also a line of universal beauty, like I talked about here. And this one, it curves too much. It does this. It should be a curve, a straight, and then a curve. So I moved it over too much. So it's also not even on the 55 anymore. So it's actually like this, whereas it should be like this. So that is something. So it should have gone like this, and then down, and then over. And then we're going here, up, down. I didn't square that off. Going up. So I'm literally being the most picky pants person ever right now. That's fine. My oval is okay. I'm doing the same problem here though. Like this shouldn't be thick up here. It should be thick only like from here to here. Should be hairline. This is fine. Up, down. This isn't great because this and this are not the same width apart. This T is a bit better than the first one, but not by much. So it should be up and then down and then over, but I didn't start pressing fast, like soon enough, so it should have been starting to get thick up here, and I didn't. This is fine with a little bit of weight that's there. Up and down. The H here is not too bad. It's doing this, like, it's curving a little bit, which it shouldn't be. But overall, it's not too bad. But, well, overall, not too bad. How picky do I want to be right now? Yeah, okay. So this here is thicker than here, whereas it should be the same thickness all the way down. I always have this challenge with compound curves where I have a tough time with not making one kind of pointy, which is what I'm doing here. I'm bringing it up like it's pointy and then bringing it back down, and then this part's round, which is good, but this part is a bit like a triangle. Up, the E is okay. The W is not bad, because at least I'm following the rules. So the W, these thicker lines here are meant to be more wavy, so that's fine. And they're supposed to be straight up and down. They're not supposed to be at a 55. The 55 is actually, oddly enough, it's the thin lines when you're going away. These are the 55, so that's also not bad. This is essentially what the line of universal beauty is. So there's probably a little bit too much of a wave in there. If I want to get my AMP certification kind of vibe. And then we have a compound curve at the beginning, and it's like I said before, I've always had trouble with the compound curve part, in not making one of these 2 points pointy. So the I is good, the T is okay, the C here is too heavy. Sorry, the C is too heavy there. Going up and down. Actually, so this H is pretty good. So that's pretty straight down. It's a pretty even weight all the way around. And the only thing I would say is, like, right here, I would have preferred that to be a bit thinner and then coming in thick down here. And yeah, same thing. This needs to be this. This is it's doing this where it should be doing this. So, which means that the space here and the space here are not the same. So we're going up, the A. So the A here is also not quite at 55. It's a bit too upright. And then we're doing an underturn, up, and then an overturn. So this should have been squared off more. This one is at least pretty even between here and here. It's still too pointy, but at least the spacing is even. And then we have our D, which is not too bad. But this, so if I'm going to put a D and a T next to each other, they have to be the same across. Going up, T, and then the H. So you can actually see it. It's curving in like here. It shouldn't be same thing. So what this is telling me, honestly, is that I need to do, like, legitimately, I need to do drills that are compound curve drills. This is what this is telling me, because this is where a lot of my annoyance of myself is coming from right now, is this shape I'm not executing very well. So I would need to probably do like a page of these, and like every 5 or 6 I would need to stop and look and like try and, okay, like let's try that again, let's try and adjust my hand and fix it. Yeah, that's essentially what this is telling me. This is what this exercise is telling me. So let me see. So the A here, this majuscule A is really, this I'm not mad at. This is a pretty good, because we're having that curve. It's straight, and then we're curving back out again. And then it's just a little little flourish. It was a bit shaky. It should probably have been a bit more like that. So when I was doing this part, I should have put a little weight right there, but I didn't. Then we have this line here, which is also at the 55, which is good. So I'm not mad. This line and this line are good. This one, a little weight would have gone a long way. Then we're doing the U. Not too bad, not too terrible. But what I'm actually looking at here, which is what I was just staring at, was my spacing. And I'm actually pretty happy with how the spacing is here. So this is something that I tell my students, that spacing is important. So, because this is what gives copperplate its consistency, is the spacing between your letters. So I will look at where they touch that baseline. And then I'll make a little mark and I'll see, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Like visually, like we're pretty evenly spaced out. I'm happy with that. And all of my little triangles here are about the same size. This one was a little bit off. This one's a bit too high, but the spacing here is still pretty good. And this is obviously a compound curve. And then we have this guy. So like overall, like those are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And a way to make sure that that happens too is making sure that your exit strokes are always at the same consistent angle as well. So all of that together means that your word is going to be properly spaced. So yeah, so that's good. My D here, this should have been more like squared. Excuse me. But also, if we're looking at the counter space in my ovally shapes, that's good. This is even, this is even, this is even, this is even. So this word itself is like pretty even. Also, even though this isn't technically like the compound curve in the way I think about it, because it's a compound curve is normally like this and the thick is right there. It's kind of like the opposite. Like it's, you know, it's kind of like the end part, and we're going from an exit stroke and then into the downstroke here. But the space between here and here are still pretty even. This one's a little bit smaller, but it's overall still pretty even. I'm happy about that. So like the word audacity, she is audacious. She is good. And then the O here is not bad. The F, I would have preferred if I'm gonna, well, I mean, honestly though, all of these ascender loops should be even everywhere in the word. So these two are even to each other, but this one's a bit too big. So like if I were to redo this, this would be something that I would look at 100% of like, these all need to be the same size, like width and space in between, because this one's bigger and then this one is really thin and this one's really thin, but they're equal to each other. So at least the ones next to each other look okay. H here, and I'm curving again. I always have a problem with that when I'm in the middle of a word. Like I'll want to curve it instead of following my guideline. And then the compound curve here is actually pretty even. Again, I'm kind of pointing it a little bit too much. It's not really rounding, but at least the spacing is even. And then my S, which is not too horrible. And then the word bitch. So the letter B is really tough as well. I know this is not a proper copperplate B. I would have to take a peek back at some actual exemplars to do it properly, just because the spacing here is always challenging for me. And also this should have gone up to the ascender line. This is just a flourish, so that's okay. The weight. The actual shape of my line of universal beauty is okay, but the weight of it is a little bit too low. It should be a bit higher. So which means, and when I say the weight of it, I mean the thickest part here, which means I should have started pressing earlier here. And then let me check my spacing here. It's actually not too bad. It's a little bit wide here, but overall pretty good. I'm looking at my triangles at the bottom. So even though the spacing is pretty good, my triangles aren't the same. So that would be something to look at if I was going to redo this. And then here, so actually, let me zoom out. Those two are the same, and these two are the same, but they're not the same as each other. And then the same thing, so it should be like, whoop. So yeah, there we go. Look how much I tore my old work apart. Isn't that fun? So I guess for me, I think actually that'll be it for me today. I don't have anything else planned. The letter group 3 didn't take as long as I thought it was going to, and you know, tearing apart my work, I feel like that's always fun to watch, fun, entertaining maybe. Well, fun may be a bit of an exaggeration, possibly educational. That's what I hope anyways, is that it was at least educational. But yeah, this is kind of how at least I work when I'm trying to perfect something. Like I'll do it once and I'll make a ton of notes and I'll go back and do it again. And then try and do it better for the next time. But then the next time I usually do it in pencil, and I do a lot of these notes in pencils as well. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for popping in, Andrea. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you. And I will switch to just my face. So thank you. Appreciate you. Next week on Monday, I will be here and I will have my hair cut because right now it is pinned back. It is long right now on the top. I thankfully don't quite have a mullet going on in the back quite yet, but I have my hairdressing appointment on Monday. So it's going to be back to being short and going back to blonde because right now my blonde is almost all completely grown out too. It's going to make me feel like I'm whole again. It's going to be very exciting. Maybe some purple in there too, just because like I'm really feeling like I need to feel better. It's just the pandemic is getting me down, but it's okay. It's fine. Haircut will help a lot, I'm sure. So yeah, this will be that. The stream on Monday actually might be not at 3:30 because I'm not sure how long the hairdressing appointment will take, so it might be a little later than 3:30, but I'll keep you guys informed. Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate. It's cool. It's the other wall, so I'm glad. The only thing is what I need a better light on this side because I don't have a light source on your left, on my right. I have like just a small ring light over here, but it's not enough to offset the window on this side, but I like having a background, which is good as well. Yeah, okay, cool. Enough of me chit-chatting. I will end the stream here. Again, thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be back on Monday. Bye.